Welcome back to our Final Fantasy VII Remake episode here on Downloadable Content. We are all still here. No one has gotten too drunk on materia, I hope.
I didn't know materia was liquid. We would be getting drunk on Mako.
Yeah, I was gonna say technically it's the Mako that's the liquid.
Well,
you
you
hated that, by the way.
You see, Hojo is a thing, though. And he may have
You're right.
He may have figured out how to have the great taste of materia in cans.
Damn it, Hojo.
So we're going to pick up where we left off. And so with that fun note, I'm going to once again slink back into the ether and hand it back to Ron here. So enjoy ye!
Yep. So we pick up with landing on our tailbones in the sewers. After a very brief option of which waifu do we wake up first, we get into a boss fight with Abzu.
The first time that they do that final attack, the Blackwater or the Brackwater, that just wiped me out. That was not a fun experience.
I hated
Maybe it was just me, but
in this one, the fact that can dodge that move if you position yourself right, loved.
But after fighting Abzu, we have to try and make our way through the sewers, and it's a relatively... I thought it was particularly annoying because the sewers in the original were only like 2 or 3 screens, and that was it. Here you have to like navigate the sewers, raise and lower the water level, and raise and lower like floodgates and like blocked off areas, all the while having this looming threat of like, are they really gonna drop the plate on like an entire sector of the city? And Eris like, oh, if they do, then we'll just try and stop it, and if not, then hey, it's okay, fantastic. And she's trying to reassure Tifa as best she can. Tifa's like,
shopping after we saved the plate.
Yeah.
I actually really liked this chapter. I thought they had some great dialogue between Tifa and Aerith. We are really getting that relationship built up in there.
Yep.
Like, I thought it was, like, this was probably one of my favorite chapters when it comes to relationship building.
Drags on replay, though.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know. Somebody else has had the PS4.
But
Yes, Shanna?
I'm sorry, I just got into y'all's drama. I couldn't help myself. Anyways. But going off of your note of the relationship building between Aerith and Tifa, yeah, that was really good. I really loved their new best girlfriends energy throughout this entire game.
Yes.
And we didn't get a chance to comment on this, but the sisters are doing it for themselves fight. Back in Don Corneo's mansion was everything. I mean, I just love that.
It even had a steel chair.
Yeah, the steel chair. The fact that one of the announcer guys is like, wait a minute, I recognize you. And the look that was on Aerith's face was just amazing. She was just like they just did such a great nuance with just the way she looked like, yes, you do know who I am, and I am about to end you. It was
like when
so
he
good.
asked before Don Corneo, she goes, It's like, so, not at all. So innocent, he's like, yeah, I guess. He falls for it.
But I really did love their relationship, and it did continue to build in that entire scene where it was just... They already had that in the original game, but they really built upon the fact that those two got really close, and they really had each other's backs, and I thought it was really sweet to be able to watch that play out.
I'll agree. Handily agree with that.
Absolutely.
Something that I really want to point out about like the drags on replay, this is where, once you got to the Sector 5 slums, this is where I feel like the game gets a little bit bulky. Each one of the chapters is important, absolutely, but it feels like each one of the chapters by this point could have been, except for maybe like 1 or 2 of like the final ones, could have been foreshortened by like 20 minutes or 30. I'm not talking like a lot. It's not like a chapter has to be cut, because yes, in the sewers there's that great character building that you need, but each one of these chapters felt a little bit too long.
You say a chapter doesn't need to be cut. In my opinion, there is one chapter that probably could have gotten removed.
If you
Which
say
was
the
that?
haunted chapter, we're gonna have words.
Is it the underground lab?
No, it's the drum chapter.
Yep. The drum was interesting, but we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. So we make our way through the sewers. We eventually fight our way out of it and end up in the back corner of the train graveyard. And chapter 11 begins.
I
the
like
train-
black light
Yeah.
hiding from ghost kids.
When I said that the wall market was my second favorite area, this is my favorite area. I love the blacklight look of everything. I love how they reimagined the train graveyard. I love how they did the ghosts. Like, this is not my favorite chapter for story, but my favorite for atmosphere and area.
I wrote in my notes, train graveyard felt magical the first playthrough.
Yeah. Yeah, it really did.
During this, you're having some more interactions between like Aerith and Cloud and Tifa. You're having this very spooky conversation of being like everyone's afraid of the ghosts and trying to like have like, oh, Cloud, be our big manly savior and protect us moment. Cloud's like, okay, kind of like unnervingly agreeing with everything going on because he himself is being a little freaked out by the ghosts and everything that's going on.
Hashtag dense as hell.
Yeah.
I did like how in the chapter 3 when you get back to Sector 7 slums, if you actually go to the far left corner and you talk to like the militia in Sector 7 slums, they're actually guarding the train graveyard and they're actually talking about how people keep talking about ghosts, but those aren't real, right? We all know there's monsters, but there's no such thing as ghosts.
Yeah.
Which seems so, like, I get it is a fantasy setting, but for them, what they know is real and is their reality. And if they haven't seen ghosts, they don't know that ghosts exist. To them, that's as weird as ghosts would be in our world. But it feels like, okay, it's a world where you fought a freaking house, you fought a swamp monster. Is it really that hard to believe that there are ghosts?
Not only that, like, you know there's a literal energy flowing through your planet that, in theory, as a religious belief, may or may not actually be literal souls, and you're not sure ghosts are real?
Well, okay, yes, but this is when I brought up to Dejah at one point. Yes, they have religion, but at this point, look, that religion is not a major thing. It would be like if in our world there was a religion whose one of their major tenets was that oil is the lifeblood of the planet. We know oil can be used as fuel. That's how they feel about Mako. It may or may not have a spiritual component, but that's not exactly a widespread belief. That was a religious belief of one group.
Fair enough. But
the point I'll say for ghosts is, what do you call the frickin' whispers when every one of us saw them? Those don't look like spirits?
yeah, I don't know. So we fight our way through train graveyard, have a brief mini boss encounter with a poltergeist in the control room of the train graveyard, and fight our way past that. Here on a radio transmission on a 50-year-old disabled, run-down train on a military channel, no less. It's encrypted with Turks, by the Turks, that they are in fact doing the bombing, the plate dropping mission. And so he's like, okay, it's nice to know that they are actually doing it, but the contrivance of how we found that out is really dumb. So we now have we're now trying to leave the train graveyard in earnest. Unfortunately, the malevolent presence of the train graveyard, i.e. the thing that's been having all these spirits and ghosts get trapped in the train graveyard in the first place shows up and kidnaps Aerith.
Now, you said that was a contrivance. I didn't see it that way. We saw the whispers there. I assumed that was them, because at this point I was under the assumption that they were trying to push things to be the same way as it was in the original game, so they were encouraging us to get to the thing in time.
I thought it was contrivance because it's not necessarily a whisper that's moving us. It's I don't think it was whispers that were moving us. I thought it was literally the train's like last little dregs of energy. But maybe it was whispers moving us. The reason why I thought it was contrivance was because here is a train even if it's like a mostly functional train, as it appears to be, why would a train have a military grade frequency for radio channel traffic?
It wouldn't. It just straight up wouldn't.
That's my point. That's my point, though.
I'm pretty sure we either saw one of the ghosts or Whisper. I thought it was a Whisper, but now I'm doubting my own memory.
I think it was the ghost, if I remember.
Go into the train, and then we get that frequency come up. So regardless, you're deliberately being shown it. Now the question is that Eligor fucking with you, which we see him do later, or was that one of the Whispers? I thought it was a Whisper, but I could be wrong. I would have to pull up the thing to see, but something is doing that deliberately.
Yeah. But Eligor shows up, and we have another boss fight with one of the more unusual enemies of the original game.
Holy crap.
That boss was annoying as hell.
Also, this is also the first instance where we see the fucking steel materia actually matter, because you can get a weapon off this asshole.
The only time the steel materia matters, yes.
Wait, which weapon? Did I miss one? Oh, no.
Aerith's bladed staff.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
It is the only way to get it. It is the only steel that is unique that you cannot get anywhere else in the game. There are a couple other places where you could get an item like slightly earlier. This is the only missable steel.
I'm gonna write that down for later.
If you did the assess. Sorry, Ron.
I thought there was another steel.
I looked it up, and I don't believe there's any other ones that are missable. Everything else can get you stuff early. But there's.
I could have sworn
we can look it up.
Yeah, I thought Aerith had a weapon that was stealable only, and I thought Barrett had a weapon that was stealable only.
No, I'm certain there are no other weapons that were steals.
Okay, I can't remember, but I can't remember if I thought there was a second weapon.
I do appreciate that in the assess menu it tells you that it has that.
This thing has a weapon. You should probably steal it.
Not even just in the steal menu. In its little text box, it goes, there is Aerith has a weapon here that you should take.
Yeah. You kill the horse ghost thing.
Chariot.
And
shout out to Eligor. I played you in 5.
And we get to chapter 12, the defense of the pillar.
Eligor, but just as one tiny note, the art direction on Eligor made me so happy. Like, I love that fight because the transition from the train to the pillar was really dramatic, because you have the moodiness of, you're in a group of the dead, essentially, right? So you've got that going on in the background, but then you also have I think I talked with this about Shanna once, right? Where you look up into the night sky and you see the muzzle flashes on the tower, and you're just like, oh no.
This is
Quick question before we continue. Am I mistaken, or am I misremembering this? But after you kill Eligor and Aerith kind of like wishes all the ghosts to go back into the Lifestream, do they not turn into like Final Fantasy X wisps for a few moments?
They do, actually, yeah.
That's exactly what it looked like to me.
Yep.
And 10 and 7 both kind of had the same the same Lifestream-esque belief, so...
Well, in theory, it's semi-canon.
I know. I'm aware of the connection.
Yes.
Anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah. Sorry.
So when we get to chapter 12, we see the muzzle flare of the resistance of Avalanche trying to defend the pillar, along with the Sector 7 militia group, with Shinra being way too in
Attention, Avalanche scum!
yeah, basically.
Is this thing on?
Yeah.
Oh, good old Reno.
This is really the turning point, the crux point of the FF7 remake. This is the point when the characters cement the road they're on. It's the point where, like, the choices are made and the stuff goes off the deep end.
The path is set for us, basically.
Exactly.
It's also nice to see that even like Reno and Rude both immediately go like we really shouldn't do this, but if we don't do it, someone else will.
I did appreciate their early hesitance, but like later in chapter 17 when they're feeling really crappy about it, things like kind of come up with sort of different ways of putting it. Where maybe
justification of doing a justification of a terrorist act, for lack of a better term.
For me, chapter 12, going off what you guys were saying about like cements pathways and stuff, this is also a chapter where like fairly major thing from the original is deviated, at least temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Wedge lives.
Yes. So for me, the muzzle flares in the train graveyard and like that slow music while you're fighting Eligor and you're desperately trying to get to the pillar, that was actually a lot more emotionally hitting than almost everything in the pillar chapter. I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but the Pillars chapter feels like they were trying so hard to hit you over the head with the ideas of it that it felt ham-handed, and I feel like they messed some stuff up. And some things with the cinematics right after the pillar falls. Some of the ways they deal with the send-offs of the different characters felt like they were a little bit too dramatic. And then Wedge lives. Because I remember when I was a kid getting to the point when Wedge falls off of the pillar and just dies. And that was that moment of like, oh crap, this is real.
I feel that way about some stuff later, but right here, no, I was totally on board with this, and this is something I've brought up to a couple people before. Take a look at how many hours you were into the game when you reached the pillar. This is the Aerith death moment for the remake, and that's why they upsold you on that relationship with Jessie earlier on and really built her up, her relationship with Cloud, because they wanted that Aerith death moment in this game, and they were building Jessie's moment to be that, because it would have hit at exactly the same point, hour-wise, that you would have hit it in the original game. And I know that because that is almost is in the same hour that I hit it when I did my Final Fantasy VII playthrough before this.
Well, here's the thing. One, I'm okay with Wedge living, at least for a bit, if only because he gets of his hero moment when he yells.
At least for a bit. What do you mean? What happens to my boy?
I wrote, so in my notes I wrote down unpopular opinion about like I enjoyed that we got to have final moments with Biggs and Jessie, but I felt like they were really melodramatic.
Yes.
Kind of almost being laughable. Particularly Jessie's. Like, I loved Jessie. I loved the relationship that they were sort of building between her and Cloud, because she kind of got him to soften up a little bit, like when she's riding on the back of his motorcycle, stuff like this. She got him to loosen up, and then she's just like doing this. She's just like breathy, and like I'm like, generally people don't die like that unless it's like a.
The original game had melodrama.
Yeah.
I think it's because of the voice acting and like just the dialogue that they wrote.
Kate Sith's death in the original when he shows right back up, but they were definitely selling it as a melodramatic death sequence.
No, but Kate Sith.
Scene, yeah, you're right.
Sith didn't really come off as melodramatic. He was kind of just like, I'm gonna try to be good for once because I suck. And then it's like, they try to make it feel sentimental, but then 5 minutes later he's like, oh hey, yeah, I have another puppet. So it was like, oh, you made me feel for you. Stop it.
I feel like it's difficult to act out a dying scene, and especially when the actors themselves would maybe not be, I don't want to say fully into it, but like, it's difficult to act like in such pain or anguish at like in acting as it is. Just trying to convey that emotion and feeling with only your voice available to you is insanely difficult. I think they did the best they could with...
Well, Ron, we can't torture voice actors just to increase their performance. What have I told you about that?
Here's the other thing, Ronnie, when you were saying they were trying to make it the Aerith moment. For me, and granted, back when I played the game, I knew that Aerith died in it, but it's a whole other thing. Reason, at least to me, that moment is so iconic and was so emotional for people because it was out of nowhere. He was just kneeling there praying in Best Girl, and down comes this a-hole stabbing her through the chest, and then she slumps over, no words.
It's so
playing.
Excuse me. She was stabbed through the back, and it came out of her chest.
Oh my God!
Are we really doing this right now?
Please, can we not?
I live with you, so I know where you live.
Just slap him.
She's gonna smother me in my sleep.
Anyway,
about the melodrama, it's one of those things where like part of what got me about the original game was like the deaths of those three characters were very stark and sudden. And so they did feel a little bit long. I will say the one line that I felt like should have definitely still belonged there was with Jesse about like, I just wish that I hadn't killed so many people, and you're just like, oh God, no! Like, so if they just taken those two death scenes and halved them, I would have been okay with it. But they just felt a little long.
I think the difference between drama and melodrama, in a lot of cases, comes down to how emotionally invested you are in the deaths. I didn't find... I didn't get... I can see Jesse being melodramatic. I did not see Biggs' death being melodramatic. But
it was mainly meaning Jesse's, but Biggs was... I still feel like it could have been a little better, but Jesse's was the one I was kind of like, girl, just... I don't want you to die, but... Like, you're talking so long, I could be saving you right now.
Yeah. So, we climb the pillar. We eventually rejoin up with Tifa. We eventually rejoin up with Barrett, and we fight Reno and Root on top of the pillar.
One of the best battles in the game.
And it is also when we see the goddamn Whisper show up again, because in the fight you succeed. You stop Reno and Root from blowing up the pillar, and we save the sector.
And this is where I really start to have actually. This is one of the few times that I really have a problem with the game. Like Roche is annoying, but I can deal with that. This is actually one of the few times that I feel like they really botched. For me, it takes away some agency. It makes it feel a little bit more too random. And also, they do my girl Tifa dirty in this. They give her a really annoying trope, which is they beat them, she manages to get to the computer machine, and then the Whispers cut you off for a second. And during that time, they literally have her looking at the computers like, I don't know what button to hit. I need someone to tell me what to do here. I'm helpless. And it just made me so... salty. It made it feel less like an inevitability of Shinra being this giant malignant force that can crush people, and instead just made it feel cheap and random, especially when you have Rude come in there and you just hear the wail of her behind the Whispers, and you get to her and she's unconscious on the ground, and Tifa is the most strong badass. I think she has the highest attack bonus in the damn game. So it just didn't feel right to me.
I will agree with you on the Tifa trope part, but I will say I'm pretty sure the whole point of the Whispers is to feel like they're taking your agency away, that is the core point of them, in that they are preventing you from making the choices you want to make, because that's not what happened in the original game, and that's what the whole thing is supposed to be overcoming.
Again, you're kind of reaching a little there, but you're not wrong, but we have to get there organically. So, unfortunately, the Whispers allow Rue to hit the button, begin the plate separation / detonation process, and they escape on a Shinra medevac chopper, I think?
Yep.
And then Sang shows up and taunts us. But during this, we did have a very brief scene where we play as Aerith running to 7th Heaven to rescue Marlene. And
Marlene.
And
Marl don't need no rescuing.
Yeah, Marlene, and get her try and get her out of the sector before the plate drops.
Mm-hmm.
She succeeds, although something funky happens during it, and Sang does end up capturing Aerith in the process.
Marlene's some special info.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she touches Marlene, and there's a flash, and we don't know what happened.
Yeah, that was weird. That was
Granted, she's hugging Marlene. Nothing happens initially, so as I'll get into later, I think whatever Aerith is doing, he has to knowingly start at. It's not just I touch you and you magically know things.
That's later.
Yeah, but okay, I'm trying to comfort this little girl. She's really scared. If I can
calm her down, almost
do her thing, and she'll hopefully be able to trust me and come along with me, so she'll be safe.
So, Sang has captured Aerith. Aerith does tell us that she did save Marlene, or get her somewhere safe. To Barrett's surprise, wait, Marlene? You mean my Marlene? Who are you? What the hell's going on? But you successfully... Well, I don't say successfully, but you do escape from the pillar with basically careening down the cable line at Mach 5 into Sector 6 as the plate falls on... Literally, plate is falling down around you as the cable's going slack in Barrett's hand.
I give a shout out to something.
With Wedge trying to save his goddamn cats.
I love his cats, but so during the cutscene for the plate falling, there's a little cameo in there.
So
that's what I was just about to say.
Fuck that cameo.
Yeah, no, exactly. This whole section, I think one of the reasons why the part at the top with Tifa gets to me, because each one of these individual small things isn't that bad, but there's so many small things that I just feel like this chapter was robbed of a lot of its strength, with the random Kate Sith reference, with Wedge is trying to find the cats, with Wedge having a little bit too much of a hero moment in and a little bit of Aerith. Again, each one of these individual things isn't that bad, but it's supposed to be an accumulating point where it's just supposed to be this brutal you being broken down and destroyed, right? This is supposed to have that. And there's just too many asides, too many little small references and things that I couldn't get emotionally impacted like I was for so much of the story.
Sounds like maybe the pacing seemed off to you.
Yep.
It was a combination of, in my opinion, it was a combination of pacing and the weird cameo. The cameo, in my opinion, is the most out of place thing in that entire chapter. Remove that cameo clip entirely, and it feels a lot more imposing because it ends with President Shinra looking over the smoldering remains of Sector 7 and kind of smiling in satisfaction. Whereas Whereas how it actually is, it goes from Shinra smiling in satisfaction to here's this little black humanoid cat like slumping down in pain. You're like, what the fuck? Why is this?
So
yeah, and it's showing you the inflection point for Reeve, because I feel like Reeve's story is going in a very different direction than it did in the original game.
So that's kind of my take on it. But the problem is, if you haven't played the original game, then you're like, what's this weird cat thing?
Yeah, what's this weird cat thing? And like, why? We at this point in time, we've only seen Reeve for all of
so
two scenes
it's
where he
like a fan service moment. But I
feel like I
forget that Reeve is Kate Sith. So I feel like seeing Kate Sith or Katsi or whatever, Ronny.
Kate Shi.
Yeah, thank you. Got me thinking about Reeve more and like paying more attention to him in the later cutscenes.
Mm-hmm. I feel. Let's put it this way, guys. That is obviously a seed for later. If you were playing this blind and you'd never played any of this before, what would you feel about Red 13 being introduced when he was at the very end of the game? That would feel pointless. Why didn't you introduce that character earlier?
Well, not for nothing. Like, Final Fantasy VII, it has such a back. Like, there's no way that you could play Remake, and if you've never played 7 before, you would go into it knowing, like, there's going to be things in here that are probably going to show up that I'm not going to understand because there's going to be fan service. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where it's like, I know if I never played the original game and I started with Remake, I would go in knowing with that grain of salt of there are probably going to be references in here that I'm not going to understand.
Absolutely. And as long as they explain, like, put it this way, when we see Kate Sith in the second game, as long as this ties into that, I think this is fine.
At least up until this point, they've done a really good job of explaining things with that careful thread of it's a remake, so that way people who are brand new to the game will be okay, but people who aren't will be okay. But this is the point when it starts to feel a little bit more fan servicey. Like with Red 13, yes, he is introduced super late into the game, but you also know there's going to be more game because at the end of it they show you, hey, look, the story will continue. It still feels like by the end of this section, you understand who Red 13 is, at least enough to understand that they are invested, that they're mysterious, that they've got more going on to them. You get enough of that. With Kate Sith, it's just like, blink, there, gone. And again, it's in the middle of the point when you're literally having thousands and thousands of people dying horribly. They didn't feel any need or desire to introduce any sort of like hint about Sid. Why is Kate Sith I feel like
I was looking for other things like that. I'm surprised we didn't get anything like that for Vincent when we were in the Hojo's lab, and I'm kind of surprised that Yuffie wasn't Kyrie when we got through that part.
Yeah, that's true.
That'd be actually really funny to see if that's what happens in the start of number 2. Like Kyrie shows up, like, oh hi, I'm here too. By the way, all the materia is mine now. All your base belongs to us.
I wish it could, but they've already.
Her grandmother is already the angel of the slums, so that
the director has confirmed that Kyrie is not Yuffie, and they confirm in the game that she is the granddaughter of the Angel of the Slums and a native to Midgar. Yeah. But it's basically Yuffie's character, and nobody can tell me that at least at some point in the development she wasn't supposed to be Yuffie.
Yeah, it's also
clothes, scamming people for money with info, be stealing their material.
Yeah, let's be honest. If they're probably going to pick up part 2 with you, like the point's going to be like Yuffie's going to steal your materia when you're in Calm. Like that's what's going to happen, and you're going to get like quote unquote depowered that way. She's gonna randomly show up and just steal all your materia.
I didn't even think of that. I kind of like that.
Okay, let's get back on track with the story.
Yeah,
but so we chapter 13. We pick up the pieces, literally and figuratively. Find out that a fair number of Sector 7 was saved. At least in that immediate area of what we knew.
Okay, you guys were nitpicking earlier. This is my nitpick.
I agree.
Where is the freaking plate? You go in where the plate is supposed to have fallen. You can look above and not see anything there. There is no plate.
Yeah, the plate's gone.
That bothered me.
It is gone.
No, but I mean, like, it's not below where it's supposed to be. It's not where it should have fallen. There's destruction underneath, but there's no visual thing of anything falling from above. It looks like a bomb went off, not that there was a collapse.
You mean there's no debris of the plate?
Yeah, the plate just doesn't exist.
It's just, you're right.
Yeah, in the original game, you never actually go back into Sector 7. It's just
we never go back into Sector 7 in the original. We do go on top of the collapsed plate in Chapter 16?
In a small part, and I do see that. But tell me, when we go into it and you see the destruction in Sector 7, you can go up on one of the high points and just look out over the destruction. There is no plate. There is nothing. It just looks like a bomb went off. There's no remnants.
Yeah.
Nothing crushed. Like that legitimately bothered me. It felt
a little weird, yeah. But in this chapter it's the last major side questing time. Last time you can do the Wall Market Arena Coliseum stuff. Meet up with Marlene. Find out about Aerith being an ancient. Some other. Do we go rescue Wedge during this, or is this chapter 14 that we go rescue Wedge?
No, it's during this kind of area too, right? Yeah, I think.
It is. Rescue Wedge and go down into the secret lab.
Yeah, the secret lab in chapter 7.
Which is totally supposed to be the Nibelheim part, like where you look in and you see the monsters being made. That's totally what that section is.
Absolutely. And then you get pushed away because you're not supposed to see this.
Yeah.
I feel like every single person by now should have figured out what the Whispers were doing. Not why, but that they're trying to keep you from either knowing things you're not supposed to know or doing things you're not supposed to do.
Yes.
Yeah. So during all this, we eventually are trying to secure passage to try and figure out how to get up onto the Shinra Tower to try and rescue Aerith. Elmira eventually agrees to us trying to rescue Aerith. And we go to Don Corneo's mansion. Because if anyone knows how to get on top of the plate, it's gonna be that fat fucker.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Chapter 14 is another, like, side questy, like, fleshing out, like, side characters.
Yep.
There is one important thing at the beginning of chapter 14.
Which is?
Resolutions. There's 3 of them, but most people get Aeriths at the first time.
The dream.
Outside.
Oh, the dream sequence, right.
Well, the dream sequence if you get Aerith.
You can get Tifa or Bear. I've gotten them all of them. Tifa, you talk to out there. Hers is she breaks down crying at one point, because just everything's hitting her at once, and she kind of clings onto Cloud's chest. And as we're watching it, Ronnie's like, "Hug her, Cloud. What are you doing?" And eventually he does, but he takes a while, which is odd because they're supposed to be childhood friends and they've been kind of reconnecting. But that's what happens there. And then Barrett's he can't sleep because again
Barrett's is so good.
He's thinking about all of the people who've died, but then and with Cloud he cheers himself up by thinking about all of the people in Avalanche who've died or not died, and so it's a way to kind of flesh out some of the people that
he name drops characters.
But, like he talks about this one girl who Jesse and her were inseparable and they were like sisters and stuff like that. So they're not super important to the story, but they're really nice character moments.
He name drops people that I assume are from Avalanche Prime, the Avalanche HQ, and I'm absolutely certain that those are going to be characters we see in part 2.
Then Aerith's is the one where,
and I'm surprised. And I told you, and Dejah, I told you, I am so surprised that conversation with Barrett wasn't a mandatory story part, considering he brought up stuff that you'd never hear about any of these characters otherwise.
That's why I don't think that they're going to show up in the. That's just me.
I'll take that bet.
So Aerith's has a vision of her. He's like, "Is this real? Is this not?" And so at one point she says, "Whatever you do, don't fall in love with me." And he goes, "Do I have any say in this?" She's like, "You think you'd have, but it's not real." And so for all of the Cloud Aerith shippers like me as a child, it was kind of like a nice moment. my 13-year-old self was screaming a little.
Yeah, but I feel like this like with the Aerith scene specifically, the Cloud Aerith interaction, like at this point in time, you're like, if you haven't figured out already, Aerith definitely knows more than she's letting.
She knows stuff.
Okay, we've missed a part that I wanted to talk about way back when. The moment I realized that this has all happened before, and I'm wondering if it was the moment for anybody else, was when you see Aerith's death in one of Cloud's flashbacks.
He starts crying.
Yep. You literally see her praying. You see the materia fall. You don't see Sephiroth's sword, and Cloud just has a tear coming out of his eye.
That's the beginning of chapter 9.
Yeah.
It's when you're escaping and she pops back up and she's I'm coming with you. Then you just
we're way past that.
Yeah, you're right. Well, we see it again. We see it twice actually. We see it in chapter 9. We see it again at the end.
We get 3 different clips of that scene in 3 different flashes. But it is obvious what it is the first time it happens, and that's when it goes. I sent out a message. My friend Jimmy is who I was texting, just like Shanna was texting Wyatt, where I went, "It's a fucking sequel!" in all things, sending it to him. What the hell is going on? Why what's happening?
When I was playing it with Ronny watching, I was much calmer about it, but he was going crazy because he really wanted to talk to me about it. But so I'm playing it and I'm looking at it and I just go, "Hey, this story already happened." Which back in the backtrack too much, but back in chapter 3, and he gets a flashback when he's looking at Marco, and the tattooed guy, and he sees the reunion, and they say reunion. I was like, "That's weird. Reunion didn't happen already."
Yep.
So then seeing that later, I was like, "Wait."
When I saw that, I thought they were changing the story, and they moved reunion to before Final Fantasy VII, and we were going to get stuff. It's when I saw that scene with Aerith where I went, "Wait, no, this has already happened." And we'll get into speculation on what I thought at the time, but
that's when I actually got really, really into the game.
Yeah, but we're talking a lot of speculation sort of stuff,
and that's
here.
Literally what I just said. That we'll talk about it more when we get to speculation.
Yeah. So
continuing
in chapter 14, I can say this is one of the big complaints that I will say from this game, gameplay wise, in that this is where you get access to the pedometer materia, which all of us probably grabbed, but if you didn't, you're screwed because you cannot go back and ever pick it up again. There are several.
Your beautiful magnifying.
Yeah, there are several. There are several materia throughout the game that if you do not pick them up the first time they are available, you can never get them. Because when you go back in New Game Plus, they are replaced with a different thing, so you can't get multiple copies of it. Which means if you didn't get it the first time, you will never get that unless you replay the game, restart the game entirely.
Oh, sucks.
I call that the Fitbit materia.
Yeah, it is. But like same thing with Choco Mog. Same way. If you didn't pick it up if you didn't pick it up from the fan, you cannot get it. It is replaced when you do New Game Plus. There's
so many healing materials from replacement materials instead of.
And to me, that is bad game design. All they had to do was put a trigger in, so if you already have the materia, then it is replaced. But if you don't have it, it is still there. It would require next to no effort from them to do it that way. It is ridiculous that they made these missable in a game with New Game Plus.
It definitely feels like an oversight. Yep.
Yeah. So chapter 14, we chase after Don Corneo again, fight Abzu again, actually kill Abzu this time, instead of wounding him previously. Have a brief interlude with one of Don Corneo's assistants, who is kind of like looking to kill Don Corneo himself because he thinks Don Corneo killed his girlfriend.
Oh, Leslie, right?
Leslie,
Yeah, Wesley.
Leslie.
That's going to come back in the next part.
But he gives us some more grappling hooks for us to Batman our way up the wall to get to try and begin climbing Shinra Tower.
Ooh, actually, so about that, the next chapter it's called The Day Midgar Stood Still, like when you're going through the wreckage. This part was actually more emotionally tangible to me than the one right after the plate falls, because you see more of the destruction. You get more of the people like, oh my god, look what's happened.
This is what that chapter should have been.
Right, you're really experiencing that wreckage, and you're going up there, and I really like this.
You're also closer to the center pillar too, which is where Shinra Tower is located. And I feel like that destruction and plate thing, yes, it should have been further out, but I feel like you see it more here because you're closer to the center pillar, which is where more of the construction and like plate and mass was located, I feel.
Right. So like for me, even though this chapter is probably one of the more filler chapters, it felt right because it finally gave me that emotional oomph I've been looking for. However, I do want to bring up something we forgot about. Flying enemies in this game can go bite it.
Yeah, I hate
Flying
it.
Helmet is easily the worst part of this game.
The consistency at which you jump up to hit stuff is not very good.
I didn't have an issue with it once I realized that you couldn't do it well in Punisher mode, because that was most of my frustration when I didn't realize why he wasn't jumping up. Once I realized, oh, he doesn't jump in Punisher mode, he does in regular mode, after that I never really had an issue.
The reason why it's so bad is because Cloud only gets like 2 or 3 attacks in the air. Tifa, I think, gets like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Also, with Blizzard and Arrow being like delayed hits compared to Fire and Thunder.
Oh my gosh, so frustrating.
That is an issue.
Yeah.
I don't understand why all the magic didn't work the same way.
But when I'm getting attacked with Blizzard, I like the fact that I can get from it.
Yeah, so like like Bear and Aerith was this like sling like homing projectiles at the aerial guys, and it was okay, which is fine. But like the moment you tried to like cut them down out of the air or punch them out of the air, it was just terrible. The camera went really wonky in multiple different directions. It got really awkward in general, just the visuals of the camera, and that made it so terrible for the aerial combat specifically. And the reason why we're kind of mentioning it is because the boss in Chapter 15 is a giant flying drone, which I think was the flying drone we see in the original game in the elevator.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. That's what I thought. But did any of you guys get him to satellite laser himself or no?
Yeah. I thought you had to.
No, you didn't have to, but you could for like a free knockdown, basically.
Oh, I thought you had to also.
Yeah, he's immune to what, physical damage until you knock his shield out doing that?
Yeah, he is.
Oh,
So,
okay.
like, you could
Some
take him down with
playthroughs
just
it didn't
magic.
seem that way. Oh, maybe I was just using like I don't know.
Yeah, you could
Could I
probably.
go play it again?
Yeah. But we beat him. We used the last of our grappling hooks to get up to the top of the central pillar, and we get to a catwalk leading to Chapter 16. Our attempted sneak in into Shinra Tower.
The belly of the beast.
Yeah.
Also showcasing that super, super iconic image of Cloud in front of the Shinra Tower.
Yeah, the moment.
Yep.
Right, can I add some stuff about Shinra Tower as well? Because when you first get into Shinra Tower, again, like I said, graphics-wise, it blew me away just how detailed they went with Shinra Tower for it, especially with the first part where you actually had to get access to like the security and stuff like that. And what Tifa actually had to do was that screwed with me a little bit though, what you actually had to do with Tifa, because I think at the first part she falls down on purpose. It's designed for her to fall down. It screwed with me how you get back up and actually get over there a little bit. It took me a little bit, but besides that, and also going on with that, the elevator thing too, as we mentioned earlier in the podcast, is like you see with the elevator, there are people who, again, just have regular jobs there and stuff.
So, who on your very first playthrough, who took the elevator? Who walked up the stairs?
I took the damn stairs.
I took the stairs.
I'm always elevator. I did the stairs the second time though. Stairs are just so long.
Yeah, I think honestly, elevator's faster than stairs.
It is. Oh, it absolutely is. And it was in the original too.
It did,
but then you wouldn't get the wonderful dialogue with Barrett.
Did appreciate in this one more so than the original. At like Tifa stays like 10 floors in front of you because she's so fast.
Yeah, you have boss music playing as you're climbing the stairs.
And then as it gets higher and Barrett gets slower and Barrett's like, I want to die. Just bury me here on floor 45.
What was it? Like you get to like floor 50 and he's like, you know what? Screw this. I'm walking back down.
Yeah.
And Tifa's like, you have 10 floors to go.
I guess Shinra's going to destroy the world. I don't care anymore.
It's the principle of the thing.
It's so wonderful.
I think it's worth doing both, like in 2 different playthroughs, because I was really glad to have that moment on the elevator that we were talking about earlier, where guy comes on floor 40, talking to his mom, and is so like dude with a big ass sword, very large man with a gun arm, a woman with a short skirt and her midriff showing, or just kind of chilling in the back of the elevator, sort of whistling to themselves, and he has no clue because he's really concerned about, the plate fell, I got a lot of stuff on my plate. He's like, nope, haven't seen anybody, we're super safe here. Yeah, okay, Mom. Gets off at 45. They're like, oh my god, we're caught. Then on the 30th floor, so before that one, doors open up and a woman was going to try to come on. So, but they had just fought people on the previous floors, so they're all like ready to fight, and his sword is like 3 inches from her face. She freaks out, and then the door just slowly closes. So I like the elevator moment.
But we get to begin climbing / reaching the top floors, making our way through the various floors. They've updated and changed some of the floor layouts and designs.
Museum.
It's a museum. The diorama scene as well. We also have a nice virtual reality walkthrough of what Shinra believes the Setra are like and how they want to try and make Neo Midgar.
Can we
and
talk?
Then also Meteor happens. What?
Can Can we talk about the commentary of corporate culture that was that entire museum thing?
Oh,
my
yeah.
God.
I loved it and hated it.
Yep.
Also,
Can we talk about how oh, sorry.
we're going to talk about the same thing, Ronnie. In the room, they have the holograms of each head.
Yeah.
And you listen to the
Oh, so
sound. It is
genius.
the perfect. You don't even have to know what the character is. It tells you everything. I wrote down my notes. What did I write? Edgar and Scarlet are assholes because they don't have anything. They can't be bothered. Palmer is a dumbass.
Yeah. Is it on?
Joe is a condescending jerk.
As usual.
Like, you wouldn't even know. And Reeve is just a good boy, just trying to do his best.
Hmm.
Even if
Poor
he's working
Reeve.
for a bad group, like, he's just trying to do his job.
He's trying
Reeve
to
is
make
a guy
people's
who's
life
actually
better.
trying to do his goddamn job.
It's
compared
like,
to
if we
everyone
make
else.
if we make a highway, then people can, like, get places. That's, like, a good thing.
Right, guys? Right? Right?
Yeah.
I feel so bad for him.
Yeah, he's too.
Reeve needs a hug.
Also,
He
he
does.
has major daddy energy. Really like his beard. Put that
But
out there.
we have the VR machine has apparently been hacked and someone's been tampering with it because
Naughty.
because apparently they decided that it would be a really fun joke to see the utter and literal destruction of Midgar as a fiery ball of massive death rains down upon it.
You mean
With
to
some-
see
with some
literal
white-haired
meteor?
asshole in a cloak taunting you.
I love Barrett's reaction at the end of that when he goes, "What the hell was that? It shouldn't
That
be."
shit ain't right. You ain't showing that supposed to show that to a kid.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. That
Barrett, you
is
dad, you.
that is literal meteor. It has the random tornadoes coming up towards it. It has the shot of meteor that you see in the original game after you blow it up and it reforms. Like, Sephiroth, we're not supposed to see that yet. We have another 40 hours to go.
What a jerk.
Yeah, I know. Spoiling a game from 20 years ago.
Yeah. The assistant to the mayor shows up and says, "Hey, I'm going to take you to the mayor of Midgard now."
There's so much
Fucking
random
Lord.
in this game.
Yes.
Mayor Domino.
Yeah. We meet with Mayor Domino and find out that he's actually the inside man of Avalanche.
I like this
Happens
change.
at night.
I
Yes,
enjoyed
I
it.
like
I
that
like
too.
Mhm.
They took
You-
upon
Gave
what
him
was in
more
the
of a-
original game, which was just him being like the figurehead but not really doing anything. And like the fact that Mayor Domino is just kind of this guy who basically sits in an office all day and doesn't really do much, but he's playing the figurehead role. And then it's like, okay, now you did something really interesting with him being the inside man. That was a really cool turn.
Yeah, it made a lot of sense.
He gives us a
So
key card
he-
to get to the next floor.
Yes.
One thing about Domino.
First
was
we
gonna
gotta
say-
buy Barrett's weapon from his minion.
Yes, you can lose. You can forget the weapon if you miss it there. When you first get into the building, when Tifa is trying to get the key card, and then she goes to the computer and she hasn't touched anything, but the stuff comes down. I remember going, "Who's watching us? What's going on?" So it was nice to know it's Domino. He's got your back. You really stink at sneaking into places.
Yep. We climb up more floors. Run into some guard that randomly knows who Cloud is and says, "Oh, Cloud, you're alive! Wow! I'm gonna go tell."
That was
Forget the guy-
weird.
I forget the guy's name. It's the guy from Crisis Core.
I don't remember the name because I never played
Yep.
Crisis Core, but I kind of liked that, if only because it was really messing with Cloud's head.
Yeah.
Well, that
Um,
and you figure eventually he probably would run into a soldier that knows him.
Yeah.
So
Well, they kind of hinted at that in way back in chapter 2 because one of the guards, one of the Shinra Musa sees Cloud, goes, "Hey, wait, aren't you?" before he jumps off the bridge.
I don't think I ever picked up on that. Does sound.
Yeah, but you meet up with the guy who's going to give you the next key card, pass this little test, get to the next floor, which is Hojo's lab. And during this time, we had the meeting between all the heads of the departments, and we get to see just how much of an evil asshole Hojo is.
That's an understatement.
I wrote down my
they really
favorite
played
line.
that up. Go ahead.
So, I hated it and loved it the first time I heard it, but when I was in it this morning, better to scar the psyche than mar the flesh.
Oh
It's
God,
like,
yes.
If that's not the most haunting line. Yeah, okay, no. We were saying this before. I wrote, that line is such a haunting line, damn you, Hojo.
Also,
That
they talk about S and G class soldiers, which is a direct reference to Crisis Core and all the pre-Final Fantasy VII stuff. A very direct reference.
The first 5 minutes of you seeing Hojo is a hologram of him like telling you off, basically, and then him literally saying, "Oh, I'm okay with mind breaking Aerith as long as we get to use her body for my experiments."
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
Hojo's an absolute piece of crap.
yeah, he's
Then
an
later-
absolute subhuman piece of garbage.
Then later when he's talking with Aerith and bringing up, like, I want to see
Do you
your
want-
mother.
do you want to see your
I mean,
mother?
underneath a microscope. You think we were just going to leave what a beautiful specimen in the gutter? Huh. Like,
and-
you're really, really perverse, dude.
Like,
Pretty sure you have,
you-
like, a weird sex fetish for this, too.
you are like what everyone imagines when they say mad scientist. They picture you. This is like mad scientist picture in the dictionary. Just like that. That's what they see.
Yep.
You also get to find Red 13.
Yep.
Yeah, we get our
My
first.
I
favorite.
cried and I said, "Here you are, my good boy. Look how beautiful you are."
We also finally get an answer as to what the whispers are.
Yep.
That's chapter 17.
No, it's actually right before that.
God,
like
it's 16.
right in
How long is
between.
16? God, 16 is so fucking long.
Okay, so the
Well,
last
16 also
part
had
of
the underground lab in it. The underground boss fight labs as well in it, if I remember correctly.
Underground Lab was 10. Anyway,
No,
so the
Hojo's experiments, where you had.
yes, that one's
The
16,
drum.
the end of 16.
Yeah, we get drum. That's coming up.
There's a
Yeah.
bit at the end of chapter 16 that I
17
found
is
significant.
yeah.
Where,
17 is the whispers. I'm sorry.
so
Very beginning.
you show up into his lab to eat his Eldritch Abomination. And you go in, and he's behind the glass, and you're talking. And Cloud's like, Curdy's not going to be able to get here faster than I can get to you, basically. Then Hojo's like, were you a soldier? He goes, yeah, first class. And he goes, oh, wait, I'm mistaken. You weren't a soldier, my boy. And then whispers show up.
What
And
is this
shoot 'em away.
fascinating
They cut this asshole
phenomenon?
off. Yeah.
I playing that this morning, I realized they don't they pop up and he says, what is this fascinating phenomenon, before they touch him and scoot him away. So I'm wondering if he can see them too.
Yeah, you can.
Yep.
Well, keep in mind the whispers. Can
Why, basically?
Well, okay. Let's separate a thing out here. There are people who can always see the whispers. Aerith, as far as we can know, has. She touched Cloud, now he can. But the whispers can make other people see them when they want. When they attacked Sector 7, everyone saw them.
Okay.
Yeah. You rescue Aerith, and during the process, break the seal holding Red 13 in. And Red 13 proceeds to bound out of his cage and tear after Hojo like a rabid animal.
Mm-hmm.
Aerith chases after Red 13, touches his forehead, and apparently gives him sentience almost. From what
I
it
think
that
was
was it is
weird.
either. I think she just like literally calmed them down.
Yeah, I took it as that, because
That's how I took it.
the
I took it as
original
he had
we were
berserk.
told that they're very smart anyway, full of his species. But also, if you've been kept in a lab for a while and probably tortured and experimented on by people, and then some new weirdos show up, Yeah, I'd probably be on guard too.
This is, now this is also the chapter where you are basically a mouse with Hojo's experiments, where you had to fight against all the failed experiments and stuff, the failed Genova experiments.
17.
Those robot.
Aren't we in chapter 17 or still in 16?
No,
We're at 16.
This is where I think this is where you start to see a little bit more of the filler, because this is also where they start to really deviate. Like, for example, when after you get Red 13 and Cloud passes out, and then you wake up in Eris's room, rather than you guys getting caught, waking up in prison and then being let out, and just the blood smears everywhere. And this is kind of where I have another small problem with the game. Again, not game breaking, not like the game, but I think one of the big iconic moments of the original game is when you're caught, you're imprisoned, there's no way out, and then you wake up and the music's playing the very slow, like, death chime, and there's just every room that you've been in before this point just has the smears of blood.
See, I vastly preferred the part here with Aerith and seeing the room and the talking there, and like I am not one that's going to say that the drum didn't go on for way longer than it needed to, but I actually greatly prefer this change, the change to going to her room instead of getting caught.
If it had just been, you go to Aerith's room after waking up, you get told about what the Whispers are, and the Whispers are apparently the will of the planet being made manifest.
Yeah.
You then are let out by Domino and Biggs, right?
No,
Or
Wedge.
Wedge.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, you get let out by Wedge, who's semi-recovered. He's didn't die from having a plate fall on his head, and then B didn't die after getting dragged off into a secret lab where Hojo had experimented on a bunch of assholes.
Wedge also had his ass burned. We forgot to mention that as well. But he's been through a lot, dogs. Poor guy.
Yep. He's injured, but he's mobile enough to at least get up to the tower with Domino's help. And he secured passage for you guys to escape.
He also got Avalanche HQ to attack the building to distract everyone.
Yep. Just get to the roof, and Avalanche HQ will rescue you guys in a chopper. See you later, guys.
I asked them really, really nice.
Really, really nice.
Yeah. So you get out of the Ares room, get stuck in the drum because Hojo wants to toy with you some more. That area goes on for way too fucking long.
I mean, let's put it this way. I like the atmosphere of the drum. With Genova there, and then all of the experimental, the tubes across the walls, and then the ones that are absolutely straight out of the Nibelheim reactor on the ground. Like,
the mood is real. The mood is
great. It went on. It should have been about half as long as it was, and I think even then it might have overstayed its welcome a little bit, but if it was half as long, I think it would have been fine. As it was, it dragged.
We eventually break our way out of the drum, get up to the next floor, and run into the president, who has somehow, in some way or shape or form, been thrown out of his office and is dangling by a thread, hanging onto the side of the cliff of the top floor.
Yeah. So how did he get there?
His son did it.
I was gonna say it has to do with the Whispers.
Sephiroth.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it ain't Sephiroth because he hasn't shown up yet.
Yeah, it's probably the Whispers.
Whispers.
Barrett,
it's the Whispers.
Yeah, the answer is probably the Whispers. Barrett rescues the president
and starts telling him off.
Yeah, begrudgingly rescues the president, starts telling him off, being like, "You're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to give respect to the Avalanche," and the
president calls him out for being a hypocrite and caring more about his reputation than about shutting the reactors down.
And then the president starts mouthing off about the only thing that matters in life is power and money. And he's going to shoot Barrett. And then finally Sephiroth shows up and stabs the asshole in the back.
Yeah, it's great. Yep. All that matters in life is power. And then Sephiroth's like, yes, you're absolutely correct, stab.
Shank. Yep.
You're not the one with the power.
Then he doubles down, goes
On the back.
for a second.
He falls down in the back stabbing and stabs Barrett through the back through his chest.
Oh my god, I freaked out when that happened.
I did because I was like,
as did the planet,
that
because
didn't happen in the original game.
yeah,
How
as
dare
did
you
the
say
planet,
the
being
best
here.
boy?
as did the planet, because a bunch of whispers suddenly show up and shuffle Sephiroth out of the arena and start working on peeling Barrett.
Yep.
And then we have a giant fucking boss battle with
Rufus,
Cloud,
right?
Aerith, Tifa, and Red 13 fighting our first Genova piece in the middle of a transformed president's office.
Genova Dreamweaver. And that fight had mood.
Yeah,
Like, it took
definitely.
me
Like
pretty-
there's a reference at the start of it, like where you end up in the core of the planet for a moment, or like the dreams of the planet, and definitely had that atmosphere, that elder god sort of vibe to the whole thing.
It was exactly what I wanted from Genova.
We eventually beat the Genova piece, which ended up being Marco, I think?
I think
No,
it was-
Mark. Sorry?
Was it?
Either
Was it?
Marco or the guy from Sector 5.
It's one of the two.
I think it's the one from Sector 5. I think Marco's the one that we see jumping off the building.
Okay, I can't remember. But we defeat the Genova, make our way out to the helipad, and get ready to get picked up by Avalanche's HQ.
When
And-
Nemesis comes out and shoots it with a rocket launcher.
Like you do.
Almost. It's Reno and Rude showing up with Rufus.
Yeah. And then you get the Rufus boss battle, which, Dejah, you want to talk about that?
That fight can go fuck itself. I had so much trouble with that.
You nearly quit the
Killer
game.
mode. Yes, I kind of temporarily rage quit where I threw the controller down the bed and I stomped away and I was like, I'm just done. I don't even care what answers there are at the end of the game.
It was annoying until you realized to get a free stagger on Rufus was just hit him with Braver.
Yeah, I never found
Never
that
knew
out.
I just looked around blocking, waiting for him to reload.
If you assess him, it literally says if you hit him with a certain move, you get a free stagger.
Here's
Yeah,
the
That
thing.
was how I figured it
just
out,
assessed
yeah.
him this morning for the first time. I had so
Yeah.
much trouble with the fight, like I couldn't get like 30 seconds in.
Yeah, I did assess him. I did see that. And when I did focused thrust, I got a stagger off almost every time. I thought it was just that he was extra susceptible to focused thrust. I didn't realize until later when I was after I beat the game and I was reading a guide to see if I missed anything that I realized no, Braver is an instant stagger.
Yep.
That would have helped.
Yeah. So also during all this, the Whisperers magically healed Barrett's wound. He's alive. He's okay. Yay!
Yay.
You guys the rest of the party starts fleeing as
And-
Cloud fights off Rufus. Tifa
Ron?
hangs back for him.
This is when earlier when you said I was stretching, this is where I go. The whole point of the Whispers is to make you feel like you have no agency in what you do.
Yes.
Even Barrett's death, even death is reversible by the Whispers because what you do doesn't matter, and that's the whole. That's what I feel like the whole point of the Final Fantasy VII Remake is the struggling against a destiny that you have no agency over and overcoming that.
I can see people complaining about that that's how the game feels the whole time. Like if it feels like, well, it doesn't really matter what I do because these things are just going to do what they want. think that'd be a valid criticism.
All right.
We-
Anyways, continuing from there.
Yeah, Barrett, Aerith, and Red 13 fight the mobile tank thingy. The other,
Yeah.
That's
asshole.
a great fight.
Um,
Tough as hell, but a good fight.
Tifa rescues Cloud from falling off of the top of the helipad after it blows up.
If you're gonna be a hero, at least be better at it.
And
Then we go
Wedge
out to
gets
that
thrown,
truck.
Wedge gets thrown out of Shinra Tower by the fucking whispers.
That broke my heart. I was like, I know, but like, you didn't die there in the original, so like, can the whispers even do that?
He's supposed to be dead by then.
Yeah.
He interfered too much.
Yeah. The other group gets to the bottom floor, tries to break out. There's Heidegger with Shinra's H security.
Knows ninjutsu motorcycling.
Yeah. You guys, Bear prepares for a valiant last stand to allow for Aerith and Red 13 to escape. Cloud shows up and performs bike ninjutsu. It's super effective. And you break out of Shinra Tower with Cloud on the motorcycle and everyone else on that crappy little three-seater, or that crappy little three-wheel like utility truck.
Who knew that Cloud was training with Roche in the off time?
Well, but that was one of the scenes that I was waiting for, because the bike chasing was one of my favorites from the original game. So I'm like, how are they going to do this? And I feel like this is where they poured on a lot of the extra. I mean, just that whole scene of him, like, literally just slow motion, Matrix style, taking out...
Conveniently not messing up Heidegger's face with, like, 3 inches clearance.
I know! It was just so over the top that I'm like, this is so stupid that I love it.
I feel also keep in mind, too, that not but 30 seconds beforehand, we had Barrett go, Avalanche, local florist, lab rat dog.
Oh, yeah.
Best line, second best line for me, but one of the best.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they are basically driving out in a Shinra Model T.
Yeah.
It looks exactly the same as it did in the original.
And they even comment that it's a crappy ride. Like, at one point, Barrett says something like, why are we driving this piece of shit? It's like, thank you for mentioning that.
Red 13 replies, we had 300-pound sack of it in the back.
Yeah, that was great.
Burn!
But chapter 18, the last chapter of the game.
Red 13 putting the shade on.
We are... Chapter 18, we are fleeing Midgar finally. The highway scene plays out pretty much like the original did.
And that damn tank.
And then Sephiroth shows up and goes, nya, nya, nya.
Yeah.
You can't beat this. I bet you can't even try.
You want to fight fate?
Yeah. And Aerith literally tells us if we go into that portal that Sephiroth made and she adjusted for us, we're going to change our destiny.
And this is where I'm really happy with her doing the change on the portal. That it really highlights that she's different, that being a Cetra or being the Ancient really gives her something. Because again, in the first game, you know that's there, but it doesn't really show. So it was just really nice to see that.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
It also confirms that at this point in time, Aerith is definitely aware that things have been playing out differently in some fashion. And with Sephiroth showing up here and doing this, it's going to change things. And she's acknowledging it too.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's speculation to say Sephiroth is created that portal because he wants you to kill them so that destiny changes. Like, that's basically directly stated. So if we go Aerith and Sephiroth have at least ideas of what is to come. Sephiroth has dropped knowledge multiple times. Then it basically comes down to Sephiroth knows he loses, so he wants to change that, obviously. And if we change it, then we might be able to keep Aerith, maybe.
Yeah.
Or we could lose other characters like Barrett, which would have happened if the Whispers were gone.
So we do agree to go change that for Sephiroth. We enter what the game calls a singularity. It is a point in time where it is a fixed point spread across all time, as the Whispers form a dome around Midgar, and you proceed to fight the will of the planet to try to try and free yourself from the reins of destiny.
Yeah, and it literally takes the pieces of the Shinra building and throws it at you.
Yeah, here is the one scene of the game that I took the most issue with. You're throwing Advent Children / Kingdom Hearts level of size and destruction at us when it does not feel like it belongs. And with the quote unquote power level of what people are at this point in the game.
But if you take a look, I mean, we have the Thundaga magics. We have the Aga level magics. We have the stuff you would expect to have at the end of the original Final Fantasy VII. And power level wise, it feels like we should be on that level at this point.
It just feels a little too early, which I think is also part of the reason of why things are so out of whack, Destiny wise.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll be weird where it gets from this game to the second game, where they'll have to deal with the inevitable. How do you reset the strength of the characters?
I don't think they're going to. We stopped at level 50. We have another 49 levels that they can go. My question... Sorry.
I would suspect that they're going to reset the materia by having Yuffie steal it, but they won't reset the weapon skills.
Yeah, probably.
Because we have a bunch of materia they haven't even introduced yet that I assume they were holding for the later games. My only thing, and I brought this up to Dejah, is that we got to the Aga magics so early. They could go up to the 4th level of magic that they've had in multiple games, the Aja level, and introduce different materia for those. But that is the one thing to me. But I feel like they are not going to erase your progress from in the new one. Like, they're going to be holding over your levels and the weapons and stuff that you got. It's why we only got two levels of frickin' limit breaks.
Yeah. But so we get to the singularity. We proceed to fight off Destiny. While we're fighting off Destiny, we have a cutscene where Zack is fighting off all of the soldiers when he tries to get back into Midgar with Comatose Cloud.
And it is literally the frickin' scene from Crisis Core. To the choreography, it is literally, they took the scene, they up-resed it, and then they photoshopped in Whispers in the background.
Yep. You proceed to defeat the Whispers, after which point in time, Sephiroth shows up, and you now have to fight Sephiroth.
Wait, you skipped a part, Bob. You proceed to fight the Whispers, and then die, and then come back, and then fight the Whispers, and then die, and repeat that as many times as necessary.
So you died to Whisper Bahamut is what you're saying. You died to Whisper Mega Flare.
Yeah.
No! I never died to Whisper Mega Flare. I died before Bahamut every time. When I got to Bahamut, I one-shotted him. I got through him in one try.
Really? Huh.
Alright, anyways.
So you fight Sephiroth, you in Advent Children-esque terrain.
Mm-hmm. I was pissed we didn't have Omni / 5 for that.
At the end of which he is literally summoning Meteor in this singularity to try and drop on your head before the timer counts down. You get a scene where Cloud appears to cut into Sephiroth. You are thrust into, what does Sephiroth call it? The Edge of Creation?
Yeah, Edge of Creation.
Mm-hmm. We get an up-res scaling of basically the final fight sequence between Cloud and Sephiroth in the middle of the planet at the end of Final Fantasy VII Original.
Yes, that was iconic for me because, again, I haven't seen the ending of that game since I was, again, 12. But that moment where it does the quick snapshots between both of them with that thunderous boom between, that hit so hard for me of like, oh my gosh. Like, it was big. But again, then there's the change where Cloud doesn't win, he loses.
It's
not even him losing. He tries to perform Omni Slash. He's beginning to do the motions for Omni Slash, and Sephiroth's parrying every single blow, and Cloud stops midway through Omni Slash.
Yeah, because Cloud knows what he's doing. Sephiroth knows what he's doing. This scene is one of my complaints about it. Everything else in this game has avoided Final Fantasy VII's perchance for being cryptic for cryptic's sake. There are unanswered questions, but they all feel like they came naturally from the story. This is the only point in the game where it feels like the traditional Final Fantasy VII, we're gonna say shit just to say shit, and it's just gonna be cryptic to be cryptic, and it doesn't actually... It felt like what they'd been avoiding the entire game, and then they...
7 seconds to save it.
Yeah,
enough for you, perhaps.
It's the end of the game. This is basically, to me, that intentionally cryptic because it's basically the hook at the end of an MCU movie to get you to come back for the next one. Did he mean by that? I don't know. And the 7 seconds thing, just my headcanon, but I think of it as like the Doom Clock concept. Like, there's 7 seconds left in this planet's history. What are you gonna do with it? That's how I take it.
So let's get into the ending, and then we can get to speculation for the tiny bit of time we have remaining.
Yeah. So the game ends with you being a Sephiroth. You have freed yourself from the restraints of the will of the planet. You are free from destiny. You are free to chart your own path.
But so is Sephiroth.
Yeah, but so is Sephiroth, who may potentially even wield the powers of the Whisperers himself now, based on how certain things are perceived and demonstrated during the Sephiroth fight. And potentially Zack is now alive?
So they cut to the scene. So it looks like Cloud and Aerith, or at least Aerith, get this flashback showing the end of the fight where Zack would be dead, but instead he's standing there and everything around him's dead, and he goes, I won. And then he gets Cloud, and they walk together towards Midgar, when normally it would just be Cloud. And then the potato chip bag comes across the screen, and it's a different stamp.
Terrier with a...
Yeah, he's a terrier now, and it cuts back, and Aerith has an amazing monologue about the steel sky and missing
the steel sky.
Yeah, but that fact that Zack walked back with him, and that's a different stamp, and as I had to tell one of my friends who was like, well, they could have changed the design between then, I go, no, Cloud, from that scene with Zack and Cloud meeting Tifa is less than a month in-game. It's just a couple weeks after that he finds Tifa and the start of the game, and the game starts. So, are they in a separate timeline? Are we going to be dealing with dimensions? Are we going to be speculation time?
Yeah, we are entering speculation time for the 10 minutes. I'm assuming Brian will be benevolent here and give us 10 minutes to speculate.
I hope so.
So let's lay down some initial ground rules / benevolence. So we all are in general agreement here that the ending of the game, as we understand it, is you as the main characters have broken free from the shackles of the original Final Fantasy VII storyline.
Right.
Yes.
Because that's what the Wizards have been trying to force you onto the entire time.
Yes, that is absolutely what happened there. I don't even know if that's speculation. That is just what happened.
So, do we believe that Sephiroth... So here's question number one I have for you. the Sephiroth that we've been encountering, is this the same Sephiroth that you think is from the original Final Fantasy VII, or do you think this is a Sephiroth from Advent Children?
Well,
I'd say Advent Children, honestly.
I would say one thing we didn't touch on, because we went through it so fast, was when we fought the Whispers, we were fighting in what is implied to be the souls of our future selves. Because if you look at each of the Whispers, they each have your fighting style, and it says a soul from a future, a soul from the future trying to save its timeline.
That specifically, that's not you from the future. That's the 3 people from Advent Children.
That's what I've heard too, is that it could possibly be the 3 disciples from Advent Children with the white hair. I've actually heard both. I've actually heard both theories, that it could be either the 3 of you or the 3 of those characters.
So the reason why people think it's the 3 disciples or the 3 people from Advent Children is because the gun arm is not the same one as Cloud's, or not on Barrett's. The sword's not as large as Cloud's, and the fists are a different fighting style. If you look at the fighting style of that person and mirror it to the Advent Children person, it is the exact same.
Okay.
I didn't really care for Advent Children, so I don't.
Yeah, but the fans of Final Fantasy VII are rabid.
Oh yeah.
To be fair, there is, I don't know if it's on Hulu or what, but there was like a remake done of Advent Children that actually
is a good story.
Like actually a good story. It was actually a better story because they restructured it, and it wasn't just a whole bunch of pretty scenes that didn't make sense.
Yeah,
like when I watched it, I was.
Sorry. I was going to say that the actual quote is, an entity from a future timeline that is manifested in the present day. It fights with a sword to protect the future that gave shape to it. That's obviously the Cloud one. Each of them just changes. It fights with a blank to protect the future.
All right, I'm gonna add in one thing as well to this for speculation's sake. So we all saw the scenes and flashbacks with Aerith and her dropping Holy, obviously. But this also brings up the question: does Aerith actually get shanked and die later on? I think that's what that's one of the things we're all trying to speculate: is does that actually happen? Is that going to happen to her in the future?
I don't think so, unless it's a different, like, you know what I mean? Like, because at this point, I assume it's a blank slate.
I assume we're going to lose a party member. It's not necessarily going to be Aerith, and if it is Aerith, it'll be in a very different way.
They're going to get to the beachfront, and she's just going to get shanked in the middle of the beachfront just to make everyone angry.
Just Coastal Soul has fingers.
So
Beck's bandage will kill Aerith.
The next game is just game is just going to start up with us walking forward, and then Sephiroth stabs Barrett and goes, "I needed to finish the job," and then leaves.
Sorry, I'm trying how to phrase my thoughts because I have an opinion and a theory on this. I'm trying to have it be as succinct as possible.
I've been having trouble with that myself.
Here is my theory. My theory is we're going to have 2 timelines that play out. Timeline 1 is you playing as Cloud in the original group, trying to make your way through the rest of the game as is to try and stop Sephiroth. Sometimes during this, we will have Laguna-esque sequences where you are dreaming or you have a momentary lapse of control and you start playing as Zack, going through like the Midgar section as Zack.
That's exactly what I told Dejah I thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
I didn't think of it as sleep stuff. I just kind of thought it would go back and forth. Like, even how the game with the chapters, it'd be like one chapter. I was saying to Ronny, I was like, I could see the party splitting at some point. because there's a lot. I'm assuming that there's gonna be a lot going on, and so like 4 characters could go one way, 4 characters could go another way, and so one chapter would be one group, etc., etc. So that's how they could split it instead of trying to do it between chapters. I was saying to him, given how this is dealing with time loops and time and all that kind of stuff, I could see the second one being some sort of, you figure out that there's 2 separate timelines and they have to merge them together in some way.
That's kind of what my theory is. So to continue, I'll expound my theory. So we have the quote unquote cloud timeline and the quote unquote Zack timeline as I'm describing them. They have 2 major points where they diverge. Point number 1 being the Aerith death scene. In Zack's timeline, Aerith dies. In Cloud's timeline, Aerith lives.
But in the original timeline, Zack would have died. So, like, wouldn't it have to be the Cloud timeline that Aerith lived?
That's so here's the reason why I'm saying Aerith lives in the Cloud timeline is Cloud, due to the Genova cells in his body, is getting some momentary controls and flashes of everything that Sephiroth has. That's why Cloud has the flashes of the Aerith kill scene.
So we've got a Horcrux situation here going on.
Yeah. No joke, it is a Horcrux scene going on here where because of Cloud's connection to Sephiroth through the Genova cells, he's got this basically like this knowledge. So whereas previously the stabbing scene is so sudden for Zack that he can't react to it in time, Cloud has had these memories occurring to him, these flashes occurring to him during the course of the storyline. And then when he sees this moment happen, he's able to react in time to stop Sephiroth from killing Aerith. The second conversion point is going to be at North Crater for the first time when you meet up there. In North Crater, it's going to be Cloud that dies in the Cloud timeline.
Okay. I'd like to bring up. I actually have 2 things I wanted to bring up. One is we actually missed one thing at the end of this, during the ending, where we didn't mention that Biggs is alive, and they hint at Jesse being alive.
Where'd they hint at Jesse being alive?
The gloves. The gloves on the desk are Jesse's.
Oh.
Yeah. So
they could be. You found it in the rubble potentially, but Ronny feels like it's just hers, and we just don't see her. So
either one of them could, at the very least, Biggs and possibly Jesse will be around for part 2. And I think it's very likely we're going to cut between Zack and Cloud in part 2, controlling 2 different parties, and we might get at least Biggs in Zack's separate party. And I think that would be amazing.
Go ahead, sorry.
To finish up my theory, when these timelines would meet up and converge, basically, is during the Lifestream event in what's the town that Cloud shows up in, in Mako poisoning? The resort town that eventually has diamond weapon.
Costa del Sol?
No, not Costa del Sol.
No.
Southern Island.
Yeah, it starts with an M. 1 second, I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah. But in my opinion, that would be the time, that would be the quote unquote best point in time from a story perspective where the timelines could merge or some sort of swapping of the timelines could happen. Because this is also when Cloud has all his memories restored and you find out what actually happened during the Nibelheim incident.
Medeal is the name.
Deal.
What if, from a story perspective, the Cloud from Zack's timeline, who has been relegated to this secondary character who is still relatively comatose, gets merged with all the memories of the Cloud from the Cloud timeline, and his body jumps from the Zack timeline to the Cloud timeline?
So, one thing I wanted to speculate on, and I wanted to bring up, because this is one that I was thinking about ever since I saw the cut to Aerith's death from Cloud's flashback.
Before you do, Ronny, Shanna did call next.
Yep.
Oh, I didn't even see. I'm sorry. Go right ahead, Shanna. I was looking away from chat.
I guess the one theory I have is a bit broader, because I haven't quite thought... I've been like, I don't know what's going to come, and I can't wait to see. But the only thought I had about how this would all go down was that somehow, in the midst of everything being changed with the timelines, there's going to come that ultimate time paradox storyline of changing the fates was the wrong thing somehow, and almost giving us almost like false faith that yes, Aerith is going to live through this, or Aerith is going to live through this, but then eventually it's going to be like, no, she had to have died because if she lives, something worse would have happened. Like, she would have gotten possessed and taken everybody out. Or like, I know that's crazy, but that's kind of my theory with this, is that maybe they're going to kind of take this storyline where now it's like, okay, now anything's possible, but it's somehow going to come back to whatever happens, the original story is still going to need to play out in the end in one way or another. And we're going to go back and we're going to have to sit and watch Aerith die and know we can't do anything about it. I don't know. That was just the one thing I took from it. Either that, or just about before Aerith gets stabbed, Wedge's cats come in and they save the day and they save Aerith. Best ending ever, the end, mic drop.
So, in the original timeline, if you follow the events through, based on what the writers and the directors have told us, the original timeline where you see Red 13 running up to with his siblings or whatever to the ruined Midgar, humanity is extinct. Humanity has died out over a century ago at least.
They never said that in any interview.
I'm pretty sure
I've read them.
I'm pretty sure it has been confirmed that during that timeline, it ends with humanity being dead and Red 13's race being the...
They refused in any time they are asked to give their perspective on what happened because they wanted it left entirely up to interpretation.
I swore they said something about that. I could be wrong.
And then after they did Advent Children and they announced the compilation of Final Fantasy VII, they directly said that humanity was not dead. But you can go, that's a different timeline, but they never stated about whether humanity died off or not. They always left it up to interpretation. Okay. Trust me, every time I play Final Fantasy VII, I spend like a week reading every interview and every week and every single thing, because that's how into it I get.
I could have been wrong.
Yeah, it's okay. So what I was trying to get into a while back before, and sorry, Shanna, it was from when I said had two things, and then Ron jumped in, and I never got to finish. Okay, so when we first get the clip of Aerith being dying, and he sees that, I started speculating on what caused this. So I was speculating on this from very early on in the game, and my interpretation was we don't know what happens when Holy goes off, and for all we know, what the Aerith and the planet could have done with Holy is bring us back to a point where we can change history so that Meteor isn't summoned. That Holy actually isn't destroying Meteor, it's just bringing us back to be able to change it so it doesn't happen.
No, I think that's a really cool idea that they could definitely... Because here's the interesting thing, is right now, in a lot of ways, this first game... I'm not going to talk so much about speculation, but sort of like the games as a whole. What they did really well about this game is that they felt like they embellished the story, and that they gave more oomph to that first half, right? Like we were kind of talking about. Like, it just feels like a lot of the stuff that happens in the first half of this remake is stuff that would have happened in the original, just kind of off screen. And then they kind of let things devolve a bit and unravel, and then you get the big reveal at the end, which is, by the way, epic, wonderful. I love that. As a individual piece, I love this game. I don't know how they're going to make the leap to the second one, and I'm worried about what that leap is going to do. So this is me not so much talking about speculation, but more me talking about the game itself and what's going to happen after. Because right now, as a story and as a concept, what they did here was phenomenal, and they pulled some really good tricks. But what I've seen developers do, and I mean, let's be honest, the director here is the director behind Kingdom Hearts, that they're going to get a little bit too big for their britches and misstep somewhere.
I feel like I get where you're coming from entirely, but the way I typically put it, and especially in a case like this, is they've earned some trust with how well they did this game, because they could have very easily have fucked it up.
Oh yeah.
But also, there is a lifetime for us to be disappointed, but there is only a short period of time that we can be hopeful, and that is until it comes out. And I would rather be hopeful about what is to come than be disappointed before it comes out, and then possibly still be disappointed after.
To be fair, this is me more hedging my bets and being cautiously hopeful. Not, oh my gosh, this game was amazing, but they're going to screw up the next one. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is, I'm just curious about what's next. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make it sound like I was putting down the next game. No. I don't think you were either. I was just saying, like, this just tends to be my perspective going into anything where, and I will absolutely, if there are trailers and things like that I don't like, I'm going to say stuff. But if I'm at the crossroads between being hopeful for the next game or being pessimistic about it, I'm going to choose hopeful, because I have plenty of time to be disappointed in the game after it comes out. Right.
I'm going to choose hopeful. That's the direction I'm typically going to choose. Dejah had something?
Are you all set, Wyatt?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Ronny kind of basically said one of the things that I've been telling him about in terms of speculation, so thank you.
Which one?
About Aerith being to just go into it.
Okay.
Basically, mine are just headcanons. So, I watched the ending of the original game last night, and so basically once Aerith started knowing, like, we realized that she knew stuff, I was like, okay, though, why does she know this? What happened? So I'm like, the last image you see at the end of the original game is Aerith in the Lifestream as Meteor is coming down and everything. What if she, being a Cetra, being in the Lifestream, being able to control this stuff, paid for a redo, mulliganed it, so now she knows, like, so my headcanon that when we see her at the beginning of this game, when she's in the alley, like we said at the beginning of the podcast, she's a little different than the beginning of the game. Like, she's more like, here I am. Okay, something's weird. I gotta get out of here. I gotta get stuff done. And so that's how I like to think about it. But then also, as she goes, she says in chapter 17, whenever the whispers touch me, I start to lose a piece of myself.
That was weird feeling. Yeah, that line was...
I think she's losing bits of what happened in the original game. She still knows Sephiroth's the bad guy. I need to save my friends. Like, I don't know if she'd, like, know, well, I'd get killed. But also, if she's in the Lifestream, she probably is able to see everything anyway. So I like to think of it as, like, in the first game, a good chunk of it is sort of a mission to kind of save Aerith, or, like, reach her again in the Promised Land and everything. And this one is Aerith is trying to save her friends. I like thinking of it like that. So I don't really have much more like that. So the other thing that weirded me out when I watched the ending of the remake, I went, what? Can Marlene, why does she turn around and say, Daddy? And she like waters a plant, and then she's about to leave the room, and then she turns around and she says, Daddy. Like, they're really there. What are you doing?
Right. Oh my god.
Okay, so I watched the ending of the last one, of the original game. And in the cutscene at one point, Marlene is in calm, like everybody evacuated, and sitting in a room at a table. She kind of looks up and she goes, "The flower girl?" And she goes over, opens up the window, and she sees Meteor. So I don't know if this is a thing or if they're going to do anything with it, but I'm like, does Marlene have like psychic abilities? I don't know. So like, I don't know. Because that's something that, like, why did she hear him? Because she goes, "Daddy," and then it sort of like beams over to him when he's like, "Daddy's coming home, Marlene," or something like that. I'm like, clearly she doesn't actually hear him, and maybe it's just the father-daughter love bond or something. I don't know, but I don't know. Just like, I wonder if there's more to that, or if I'm just overthinking.
Maybe Marlene's the real last agent.
I mean, then that would be like to dine with an ancient and all other weird stuff, but I don't know. I was just like, Marlene's not that big of a part in the original. She's not even here necessarily, but given that we have 2 at least games to do, who knows? Maybe. I don't know. I like thinking like that.
All right.
I think it is time to wind down, right, Brian?
I think you fell asleep.
No, I'm still here.
Oh.
Aha! I reemerge back from the ether.
Came back from the live stream. Yay!
Yay! I am revived. I am not dead. But yeah, that's. I can't wait to play this and start forming my own opinions and thoughts about it.
I hope we don't overhype it like Undertale, and then you're like,
well,
here's
here's the thing. Final Fantasy VII was my introduction to JRPGs. It was the very first JRPG I'd ever played, and Final Fantasy VII, the original Final Fantasy VII, is one of my all-time favorite games. There is so much sentimental value in the original game, and it's one of those things where if I wind up playing the remake and I don't like it, it's not like the original game has vanished forever. It's like the original game will always still be there. It's like I can play that anytime I want.
I also think that's part of the reason I ended up liking the remake more, because I was against it for so long, I think, because in a way I felt like it invalidated the original that I had such a nostalgic connection to. But this is like, both exist. Like currently.
Yeah, like I knew, even before recording, that this game is this remake, it's a different animal. It's 23 years after, it's made 23 years after the original game. It is not going to be a shot-for-shot, line-by-line remake. It can't be. It absolutely cannot be. Video game technology and storytelling have come so far in the last 2 decades. It's like, of course things are going to be, you're giving another chance to reopen that plot and play with it some more. It's like, what do we want to do now, or what did we want to do that we couldn't do then due to the limitations of the technology? So here we are. So I'm looking forward to getting it when it eventually hits PC.
Well, Brian, if it doesn't hit PC eventually and the COVID is over, so I don't have to worry about giving you a virus, I will just let you use our PS4. I'll just drive up and drop it off
for a weekend and not sleep and just play for 72 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I'll buy the PS4 once there's enough games out that I want to play. So, but yeah, so the excellent episode, just well done all around for everyone. So, if any of you out there on the wide world of the internet have any questions, thoughts, comments on this episode or any other episode of downloadable content, you can let us know on our website, dlcpodcast.com. Click the feedback button. Let us have it. Every single episode can also be found on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Play Music, and now Spotify. And of course, you can find us on Facebook at Downloadable Content or on Twitter at DL Content. So it's all there for you. So all it remains for me to do is to thank Ron, Ronny, Dejah, Shanna, Wyatt, and Ryan for being on this episode. Thank you all so much. This was a wonderful, wonderful episode. Great fun to listen to. So on that note, everyone, I'm Brian. Have a good one.